You've probably noticed it. Jobs disappearing, hours getting cut, and prices rising faster than your paycheck. It feels like the economy's fine, but your wallet says otherwise. Here's the thing. Everyone keeps saying the job market is strong. But what if that's a lie we tell ourselves to feel safe? Because right now, behind the official numbers, millions of Americans are quietly losing their footing. Factories that once ran 24/7 are sitting half empty. Tech hubs that promised unlimited growth are slashing teams overnight. And the same states that people fled to for opportunity, they're bleeding jobs just as fast. So if you think moving to Texas or Florida keeps you safe, think again. The truth is, America's job market isn't booming, it's breaking. Yet here's the twist. This collapse isn't random. It's targeting specific states, industries, and income levels. And if you don't know where it's hitting next, you could be blindsided. That's why we break it all down, the real numbers, the real stories, and the truth no one else is talking about. So if you care about where this economy is headed, make sure you're subscribed, because what's coming next affects everyone. Today, we're exposing the 10 US states where layoffs are exploding, savings are evaporating, and the so-called American dream is hanging by a thread. Because if you think your state is safe, you might want to think again. Chapter 1. The map nobody wants to see. Everyone keeps saying it's just a slowdown, but if you look at the numbers, something much bigger. In Washington, D.C., unemployment has climbed to nearly 6%, the highest in the nation. California and Nevada aren't far behind, both hovering around 5.5%. Yet the national average sits closer to 4.2%. So while some states pretend everything's fine, others are quietly drowning. What's worse, these aren't struggling small towns. They're the power centers of America. The same cities that once drove innovation, tech, and government stability are now losing jobs faster than they can replace them. Think about it. DC bleeds federal jobs. California's tech giants are trimming staff. Nevada's casinos are cutting shifts. Different industries, same result. More people out of work, more families falling behind. But here's the twist. This collapse isn't hitting evenly. While some states are watching factories shut down, others are still hiring. That uneven pain creates a dangerous illusion. A country that looks healthy on paper, but is breaking apart underneath. So if the national unemployment rate seems low, don't relax. Because averages hide pain. And right now, those averages are lying to you. But that's only the start. The real pressure isn't from job losses alone. It's from the bills that never stop coming. Chapter 2. The silent squeeze. You don't need to lose your job to feel broke. These days, it's enough just to keep it. Because although paychecks look the same, everything else costs more, and faster than anyone's salary can catch up. Rent, gas, groceries, they're not just rising, they're running away. In Florida, homeowners are paying over $6,000 a year for insurance alone. That's before you even talk about mortgages that now top $2,900 a month. Yet the average household income sits around $67,000. Do the math. The numbers don't balance, and the middle class knows it. But here's the kicker. This isn't just about inflation, it's about compression. Workers are squeezed from both sides. Companies cutting hours to save money, and bills that refuse to shrink. You're working the same job, yet somehow falling further behind. And while politicians call it a temporary adjustment, families call it something else. Panic. Groceries that cost $200 last year now push $320. Gas flirts with $4 a gallon. Savings accounts are shrinking faster than gas tanks empty. Yet oddly enough, Wall Street calls this stability. Because stocks are steady, they think households are fine. But stability in charts means nothing when people are swiping credit cards to buy dinner. Here's the truth no one wants to say out loud. The job crisis isn't just unemployment, it's underliving. Millions of people technically working, but barely surviving. And that quiet struggle, it's spreading faster than the layoffs themselves. However, the cracks aren't just showing in family budgets. They're visible in the very skyline of America's biggest cities. And what's happening there might be the biggest warning yet. Chapter 3. Tech and towers. For years, tech was untouchable. While other industries struggled, Silicon Valley kept printing success stories. New apps, new funding, new millionaires. But in 2025, the glow is fading fast. Startups that once promised endless growth are now disappearing overnight. The same founders who bragged about disrupting industries are quietly deleting LinkedIn posts about layoffs. And yet, here's the paradox. The products still exist, the money still flows, but the people behind them are gone. Automation, AI, and investor panic have turned entire offices into ghost floors. In San Francisco, vacancy rates now hover around 30%, the highest in modern history. That's not just empty buildings, that's tens of thousands of missing paychecks. Every dark window downtown represents another barista without customers, another shop without buyers, another landlord without rent. But here's the snapback. This collapse isn't isolated to California. Cities like Seattle, Austin, and Denver, once booming tech magnates, are now feeling the same sting. Startups can't raise capital. Big firms are cutting mid-level managers. And hybrid work, once seen as freedom, has turned into a slow bleed for urban economies. Therefore, the tech correction, everyone called temporary, is starting to look permanent. Because the layoffs aren't just a response to the economy, they are the new economy. And the irony, the same technology that made these cities rich is now making workers replaceable. Cheaper, faster, automated, and far easier to delete than to hire. So when you see another empty tower and someone says, "It's just remote work," don't believe it. Those towers aren't empty by accident. They're the skyline version of America's shrinking middle class. Yet while tech cities crumble, a different kind of collapse is unfolding. One that hits closer to home for anyone connected to government work or federal spending. And it's spreading through the very heart of America's capital belt. Chapter 4. The Belt Tightens. You'd think government jobs are safe. Steady pay, strong benefits, and no risk of layoffs, right? Wrong. Because in 2025, the one place Americans thought was untouchable, the federal system, is quietly cutting its own backbone. Across Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia, thousands of government workers and contractors are losing their positions as budgets shrink and projects freeze. But here's what most people miss. When one federal agency cuts 100 jobs, hundreds more vanish in the shadows. Office janitors lose shifts, cafes lose customers, small businesses lose the very clients that kept them alive. The ripple doesn't stop in the capital. It spills into suburbs once seen as recession-proof. In Bethesda, homes worth $500,000 are sitting longer on the market. In Arlington, rents are sliding for the first time in years. And in Fairfax County, families earning six figures are suddenly realizing six figures isn't what it used to be. However, the real shock isn't in the numbers. It's in the mindset. For decades, the DC area was built on the promise of job security. Now that illusion is gone. And when security disappears, confidence collapses right behind it. Therefore, what used to be America's safest career path is now its slowest sinking ship. And while officials call it restructuring, families call it what it really is, a betrayal. Because if even the government is downsizing, who's left to protect anyone else? But while Washington trims its workforce, another kind of meltdown is happening across the map, this time in America's industrial heartland. Chapter 5, Factory Reset. For decades, America's factories were the heartbeat of the middle class, loud, steady, and proud. If you had a toolbox and a strong back, you could build a future. But that future is fading fast. Across the Midwest, from Michigan to Ohio, machines haven't stopped, workers have. Automation and electric vehicle production promised efficiency, yet behind the scenes, it's replacing the very people who built the industry. In Detroit, assembly lines that once ran around the clock now operate with half the shifts. In Flint, skilled workers who earn $30 an hour are being replaced by robots that never asked for a raise. But here's the twist. The electric revolution that was supposed to save manufacturing is quietly reshaping it into something colder. Yes, EVs are the future. However, building them takes fewer parts and fewer people. So even when new factories open, the job count doesn't come close to what was lost. Therefore, when politicians brag about new jobs, listen carefully. Because a job isn't a job when it can't feed a family or build a life. Factories aren't closing overnight. They're slowly hollowing out. And that slow decay, it's harder to see, but 10 times more dangerous. But while America's industrial core is being stripped for efficiency, another storm is forming, this time in the so-called booming South. Chapter 6, the Sun Belt Mirage. For years, everyone said, move south, that's where the opportunity is. Low taxes, cheap homes, endless sunshine. It sounded perfect, but that dream is starting to melt under the heat. In Texas and Florida, the same states that promised affordable living are now among the hardest to survive in. The jobs came fast, but the bills came faster. In Austin, home prices that once averaged $300,000 now hover near $500,000. Property taxes can hit $9,000 a year, and insurance rates have doubled for thousands of families. In Florida, the Paradise State is running out of miracles. Yes, there's no income tax, but homeowners now pay over $6,000 a year just to insure their houses. Hurricanes, flooding, and a crumbling insurance market are pushing people out faster than beaches can pull them in. However, here's what no one wants to admit. Cheap states aren't cheap anymore. The influx of new residents drove costs sky high. Groceries, rent, fuel, everything that was supposed to be affordable now feels like California with better weather. Therefore, the Sun Belt miracle was never a miracle. It was a delay, a temporary escape from high-cost states that's now collapsing under its own success. But even as these once booming states struggle to stay afloat, there's another crisis spreading inside America's financial centers. Chapter 7, the financial fault line. If the Sun Belt's problem is cost, the Northeast's problem is pressure. Because while salaries look higher on paper, the math doesn't work in real life. Take New Jersey. Average home price nearly $500,000. Average property tax over $9,500 a year. That means even people earning six figures feel like they're drowning. These are the states that were supposed to be safe. Finance, logistics, pharmaceuticals, the backbone of American business. But layoffs are spreading there too. Warehouses near Newark are cutting staff. Pharma labs in New Brunswick are downsizing. And Wall Street firms are quietly trimming middle management while bragging about AI efficiency. Therefore, what used to be stability has turned into slow erosion. The jobs are still there, but the people behind them are exhausted, underpaid, and one rent increase away from collapse. The American dream has turned nomadic. People aren't chasing opportunity anymore. They're running from the cost of living. Chapter 8, the dream in free fall. For generations, the American dream meant one thing: work hard, move up, and life gets better. But what happens when that ladder breaks? Because right now, millions of Americans are doing everything right and still falling behind. They're working two jobs, cutting corners, saving every dollar, yet somehow the finish line keeps moving farther away. However, the real collapse isn't in the job market, it's in faith. Faith that work pays off, faith that things will get better, faith that this system still works for the people holding it up. The resilience people talk about, it's turning into survival mode, and survival isn't success, it's exhaustion. Therefore, what we're witnessing isn't just an economic correction, it's a cultural fracture. A country that used to promise upward mobility now punishes the very people trying to climb. The dream hasn't vanished, it's just been priced out. Chapter 9, the cycle returns. Every collapse feels new until you realize it's not. Because history has done this before. Debt builds, wages stall, confidence breaks, and then just when people stop believing, the cycle resets. However, this time feels different. Not because the numbers are worse, but because the trust is gone. In 2008, people still believed in recovery. In 2025, people just believe they're on their own. Yet America always finds a way to reinvent itself, but only after hitting rock bottom. The question is, how deep do we go before we start climbing again? Maybe this collapse isn't destruction at all. Maybe it's a reckoning, a chance to rebuild something that actually works for the people, not just the headlines. Because this isn't just a story about jobs. It's a story about America waking up. The dream isn't dead, it's just waiting to be rebuilt. If you've made it this far, you already know. This isn't just an economic story, it's personal. It's about people trying to survive a system that's breaking beneath them, but every collapse creates a choice. Some freeze, others adapt. And the ones who stay informed, they're the ones who make it through. So if you don't want to be blindsided when the next wave hits, stay ready, stay aware, and subscribe, because what's coming next will decide who falls and who gets back up. The American dream isn't gone, it's just being rewritten. And this time, you'll want to be here to see how it ends.